Hello everyone and welcome. I just got back from Tucson where I was able to buy a bunch of brand new beautiful gemstones for my stash, and I just really want to make a pair of earrings so I can start using and wearing these gemstones. So I picked out a few of them and came up with this earring design. So I'm going to make the second one here with you all so that I have a finished pair of earrings. So these are all brand new ones that I picked out in Tucson. These are a Faceted Briolette, 8 by 12 millimeters. I think they are like a peach moonstone, something in that family. Really fun. I picked up quite a few Briolettes because I just love designing with them. And then I have a few different types of rounds, some smooth, some faceted. These are a 5 millimeter smooth round in 5 millimeter. Most of the beads I bought in Tucson were like 6 millimeters or smaller because I've just realized that's like my preference. That's what I like to work with. These ones are 4 millimeter smooth rounds. I think they're a coral bead. Might be dyed as that, and the kind of, maybe they're dyed, I'm not sure. And then this is a faceted round that is 3.5 millimeters, and it looks like a sunstone. It has so much sparkle, so pretty. So I combine these together. I love putting oranges and blues together. I always love it, with some wire, and came up with this design. I think it looks a little bit retro, kind of summery, fun. So I'll show you how I made it. Along with all those beads, we're gonna need some wire. I am using 18 gauge and 26 gauge copper wire. This is a bare copper wire. It's dead soft, so that just means it's super easy to manipulate and move into the shapes that we want. And we'll be able to use a hammer to work hard in the parts that we do want to. So that's what we'll need. These are the Beadalon Artistic Wire brand, but any type of bare copper, dead, or just dead soft wire, artistic craft wire will work. So starting with the 18 gauge, I've cut a piece of 6 inches of 18 gauge, and we're going to use this to make the frame of our design. While I hold on to this wire with some flat nose pliers, I'm going to use these nylon jaw pliers to just straighten out the wire, try to get rid of any kinks that are in there. That'll just make things look a little better in my finished design. And so I'll start by making a loop here at the end of the wire. Let's see, maybe I'll do about that size. I think that's around where I did it last time. So it becomes a P, and then I want to actually bring it back down so it's centered there on the wire, and then I'm going to hold right below my loop and fold this back that direction. And so now this leaves some space right under my loop where I will do some wire wrapping later. So let's grab the mandrel, and now we're going to form our shape. So I'm going with a circle. So let's hold this down and bring our wire all the way around. Trying to keep that pretty even as I do, not try to get, let's see here. All right, so got that going all the way around my mandrel, and then I'm going to take the end of my wire here and bring it around that where I left that space for wire wrapping. So I am going to go around twice to match my other one, and then I can take this off the mandrel, and you see we got a little bit extra there. So I'm going to cut that off. Maybe try to tuck in the end a little bit. It's a little tricky with 18 gauge wire. That, you know, it's pretty strong. But I can try to, there, tuck that in a little bit, and then just put it back on just to make sure it's still shaped well. It's looking good. So now I want to bring over my hammer and my bench block because we want to hammer this. So right now this shape is still quite malleable. So if I'm not going to do it, but if I just like tugged on this thing can get totally bent out of shape. And we'd like this to stay in this circle if it can. And so we're going to doesn't matter either side. I'm gonna do both sides. I'm gonna bring it onto my bench block, but make sure you're happy with your shape before you start hammering, because once you hammer it, you're like locking it in. So I'm happy with where it is. And so I'm just gonna hang the wrap loop off the side and hammer this all the way around. And as I hammer it, I'm work hardening the piece so that it locks into place. So now my loop is much stronger. It'll stay in shape better, and I can just bring that on just to double check. Yep, it's still in that shape that I would like. So I've got my frame. So we are a nice way along. We have a frame, and that looks like a good match to the other one. So now we're gonna add all of these embellishments. So for this, I'm gonna go to the 26 gauge wire, and I actually am gonna use 2 pieces. I'm gonna use 1 piece for these strands of beads at the top and then a different piece at the bottom. But I'm gonna start with the strands that go across. I have cut my 26 gauge wire. I've cut 20 inches of it, which will give me, there'll be extra of this, but just to make sure I have plenty to work with. And so I need to get this hooked on. Let me move some of my tools out of the way. All right, I'm just looking at my other one. Make sure I do this the same. All right, so what I'm gonna do is to wrap this around, and I'm gonna wrap it around on one side, and I'm gonna actually use the tail as what I'm wrapping around, because that's just easier to loop through than the full side. So I'm just gonna use the tail. And I don't actually want it right up against the top. I want it down a little bit, but this will still be, even once I've hooked this on, we'll end up being able to move it. So using the tail of my piece here, I'm gonna wrap around maybe 4 or 5 times, trying to get it tight so it stays pretty secure there, and I can kind of pinch them together a little bit too, and you can use pliers for that. All right, so I've got that secured on. I'm gonna cut away the extra and just do that on what I'm considering the back side of this piece. I can tuck in the end a little bit. And now I'm gonna start adding beads. So the approach that I did, and you can do this however you'd like, is that on this side, I'm coming from this 26 gauge wire is coming from the back side of the frame. So once I add the beads, I'm gonna then from the other side be on the front side. I kind of liked it alternating. So if I come from the back on this side of the frame, I'm gonna go over the top on the other side, or the opposite if that's what happens. So for this first row, I'm gonna need 3 pieces of my 3.5 millimeter faceted beads. So just grab that. String these 3 on. And this is a very flexible design, so you can adjust this to whatever size beads that you have. But just depending on what size, that'll just affect how many beads you can fit across. It'll also affect where you need this wire to be. Like, do you need it closer to the loop or farther away? Just based on, how much of a diameter do your beads have that you have to fit in there. So as I mentioned, I have the wire coming from the back on the left, so I'm gonna have it go over the top on the right. That felt more secure to me, but I think you could, you can try out other methods. And now I will wrap on this side to lock it into place. And I want to talk you through what my method is. Maybe you can notice what I'm doing, but I'll talk you through it. So I think when you're first doing wire work like this, your instinct is to take the end of the wire and stick it through. But when you do that, your wire is going to start bending and kinking and just, it becomes a mess to work with. So the best trick that I learned is to actually hold on to the wire close to the front of it and push that through and then pull through. And it's amazing. It doesn't kink. So I'll show you that again. So instead of bringing the end of the wire through, I'm just going to push up right there and then pull through and then go around. So I need to go down quite a bit, because if I just stop here and add on the beads, so if I was just, I'll hold this, if I was to try to string beads on right here, there's like no space for those beads to be there, right? Because like this wire is right up against that bead. I need this down a bit because I need to have room for the diameter of the beads that I'm adding. So I'm probably gonna need to get close to like double the amount of wraps that I've gone around so far. So we'll just keep going. So you'll be doing these loops around many times, so you'll get good at it, I promise. Just keep wrapping till we are happy with the length. Let's see here. So now if I bring the beads across, there's actually space above the wire for the beads to fit. So I'm just going to look at my original one. I want to do a similar, what is that? That's over here. I want to do a similar amount of wraps, but I'm just going to eyeball it. All right, that looks about the same to me. All right, so let's put on 5 of our 4mm rounds. String those all 4 onto the wire. You can do that all at once, or you should do that all at once, I guess. Just bring those down. And I said 4, but looking back at my design, I meant 5. I was like, wait a sec, there's too much space there. I need one more. Yep, I used 5 in my original design. So actually, I don't like, grab a different one. That one I didn't like the color of as much. All right, here we go. Oh, so much better. Okay, now we have 5, and the way that I actually chose to do this is I actually chose to give the beads a slight curve. It kind of matched the curve of the piece as well. So instead of going straight across, what's also tricky about going straight across is that like having beads that like exactly, getting them the exact diameter to go straight across, I just found was trickier. So a way to just like make this work with whatever size beads you have was if you actually pull this, I'm just pulling this down in the center to like make it a little bit of a U shape, and that way it'll go from side to side and it'll fit with the beads that I have, even if, you know, maybe even these 5 beads are slightly different than the other ones. I found it worked a lot easier if I gave it that slight curve. So this first first ring of this wire that I'm going to do is what's going to lock it into place. I want to make sure I'm happy with where it is. Let's see here. Yep. So then I try to like kind of I'm holding on to the beads I've strung, and I'm holding on to the frames. It's kind of just keeping it all locked into place. And then I just want to bring my wire around. It's actually, wait, let me just double check. Yep, I'm coming up from the front on this side, so I do want to go towards the back on here. So let me try that again. So hold everything tight, and then I just pull tight as I pull around. And then again, to go through, I do my trick of pushing up from there and pulling through. And kind of have to squeeze in the wire there to fit next to the bead. All right, so now let's just keep going, because we're going to do one more strand of beads going across this design. This really is a quick project, and that was my goal. It's like, I've got all these gems, I got all these things to play with, and I know I'll get to some more complex projects, some other ones, but I really wanted an easy win that still felt special. because I want to be able to wear these beads and, you know, enjoy them day to day. So I'm just going to keep doing that same technique to get farther down my frame. And I am holding pretty firm, like on this wire, like as I pull it to go around, I'm not, like if I'm loose with it, I think it will look, you know, not as neat. And so I am holding it taut as I pull it around, and then, you know, as I pull it through. So I think if you're finding your wraps are just looking kind of messy, I think holding the wire a little more taut can help. All right, let's see how we're doing here. And if I don't quite like the placement, usually, unless I'm being, no, there we go. I can still usually move my wire coils around a little bit. All right, so now I need to go down enough to do the third side. Actually, I think I even went too far. So I'm gonna take, because I wanna match the other one, I'm gonna take out a couple. So just doing my, I guess, same technique, but backwards. It's not ideal to take it out because the wire is now a little funkier, but I think that'll be okay. All right, that should be pretty good. So let's string on 5 pieces of my 5mm kyanite rounds. Three, 4, and one more. I'll bring this down first. One more. All right, so 5 of those that we'll bring across. I'm gonna do the same thing where as I'm going, instead of going, if I go straight across, like this isn't even gonna fit, but I'm gonna give it a slight curve. Let's see, actually, and I wanna bring this side up a little bit. Okay, there we go. That'll give my beads a little more space to fit. All right, so I've got my 5 of these, and let's see, I'm coming from the back on this side, so I want to go over the frame on the other side. So I'm just gonna hold everything down with my left hand. Oops, try that again. Hold everything down with my left while I pull that taut around. It's a little bit tricky here. Let's see if I can kind of hold that in place, and then I'm gonna again push up there. Ooh, and actually, no, I'm not going the right way that I want. I actually found, because this is where I'm ending the wire, I didn't like the look of going down. I actually want to go up. So let's undo that. Still time. So what I want to do, and I think I might flip this over because I want this to be at the top. What I want is, as I do these loops, I want them to go towards the top of my ring. I just liked, I mean, both ways will make your piece secure. I just aesthetically like them more. So I actually have to fit my wire in between the blue and the red beads here in order to go up the frame. So it is a little trickier this way, but it was worth it for me. I like the look. So yeah, I'll just keep going up. I don't even need to do this that many times. I'll just do a couple more to match my other one. All right, that looks good. So I'm considering this side the back. So I'm just always gonna cut the wire on the same side every time to help keep things neat. Tuck in my end. All right, and then if I don't quite like how anything is sitting, this is my chance to, you know, move things around a little bit, do any adjustments that I would like. You can even kind of press these loops together. So there we go. So if you wanted, this could be your full design. You could, you know, add your ear wire and be done, but I wanted to have some dangles from the end. So I'm gonna be adding both a briolette and those same 3.5 millimeter rounds from the top of my design. So let me show you how to do that. Let's see, so oh, I'm also just curious, we cut 20 inches of wire to do this, and I still have, probably still have 10 inches. So yeah, I definitely could have cut that shorter. And actually this is about what you need for the other one, but I'll use the piece I already cut for this. So yeah, I guess if you use 20 to start, that could probably cover you for both the top and then again for the bottom. But I've got a piece here that is 9 inches. Again, this is the 26 gauge. You could use 24 gauge for this design. My thinking for using 26 gauge was that, you know, it's a little bit of a thinner wire, and so it just wouldn't be as bulky with all these loops that I'm going around here. The wire just wouldn't be as bulky going around, and I thought this would just be a little more subtle. Okay, so let me grab, what do I need here? I'm gonna need one of those brios, and then I'm gonna need 2 of those little round beads. Actually, I think I need to cut open my strand because I did not save myself enough pieces. So just take a few more off. And then retie this. I mean, it depends. If you want to keep it on the strand, that's why I'm retying it. Otherwise, you know, you can just empty it into a bag or in some sort of storage. But I kind of like leaving the rest of the beads on strands. It's kind of nice when I'm designing to be able to move entire strands around. I know, I kind of like that. So at least for now, I'm going to keep those on the strand. So let's see here. Now I have all the beads I need. So for this, I actually liked starting in the center because I really wanted this briolette to be, you know, centered in my design. And so I found it easier to start with that instead of starting with the little rounds on the edges and then kind of having to adjust from there. So I'm going to put this wire through, and then at about halfway of this, you know, basically fold this wire in half. That's what I'm saying. Fold it in half over this, and start adding some loops. And I'm going to do this not quite center. I want to do it slightly off from center because it's the briolette that I want to actually be in the center. So we will wrap this around. I wonder if anyone would do this part first before they did that. I don't know, I guess either way, whatever one you do first is just going to be kind of in the way when you're doing the other, but I don't know, this at the bottom feels a little more delicate. I don't know, adding the briolette and it kind of hanging down. So it feels easier to get out of shape. So I kind of like the idea that we're doing this part last. I'm just going to bring up my original just to make it easier for myself to see. So I did 5 loops before I added the brio. So let's see here. There we go. So that's 5 of those. And I guess I could actually, might as well use the one that's a little bit longer. So I'm going to push this a little bit off centered. And then whichever wire's a little longer is what I'll use for adding this brio. And here's where I want to try to get it centered. All right, so so what I did there is I just kind of bent it. So now there's that angle in this wire. So that way this can sit right under the piece. And this is where I need to see like, okay, that's a little bit too to the side of center. So I push it over. I think that looks good. So now I'll bring this back up to make that angle on the other side. And then I don't know, I found the pattern that I did was if whatever side I came off the frame, as I go back, I want on the other side. So on here, I'm on the top side of the frame. So now I actually want to bring this wire to the back side of the frame and use my same technique of pushing that up and pulling through. And you got to be a little careful here. So before I lock it into place, I need to make sure that I like it. Is it centered? You know, is it centered? And when I say centered, it's centered under that top loop. And once I'm happy with it, I'll lock it into place by doing that first bend around and, you know, maybe adjust this a little bit. I don't want this bead to be too tight to the frame because I want this one to be able to move. So I want to make sure I'm not too close to it. All right, so now I'm going to add 5 loops on this side. This time I actually did count the loops. It was, I guess because there was less of them, it's easier to count and then in order to make it look consistent. Trying to make sure I don't get any issues with the Brio. And this is where I feel like if you're not careful, you could end up like breaking your wire. So I just want to make sure I'm gentle. And one thing that actually can help, because this is a small space to pull the wire up through, you can even use some pliers to help grab that wire as you're pulling it through. That's 4. And that is 5. Okay. And again, this is still able to move a little bit, so I can adjust the position if I need to. All right, we're getting it so close to the end. So I just want to add 1 3.5mm round to either side of this. I mean, here's how it looks just like this. You have that option, but I kind of like the flare that it adds to just add a little more beads to the bottom here. So I'm just going to lay that there, bring my wire to the back and up through. And hook that on. And again, I am going to do 5 loops for consistency. I kind of liked having the same amount of loops between each of these sections at the bottom. I thought that made it look polished. I kind of don't want to be hanging on to that Brio because I really don't want to like break the wire or do something funky. But maybe try not to hold on to that part too much. Hold somewhere else on the frame if I can. And again, I can pull, especially now this is, you know, this has become quite a bit shorter. I kind of need the pliers to help me. I think that will make 5. So let's cut that off on the back side. Tuck the end down. And now we'll do the same on the other side. So still checking if it looks centered. Do I need to adjust it at all? Let's see. Slightly bent out of shape here. All right, there we go. So let's string on the bead. I feel like with wire work like this, there's a lot of little nudging and fidgeting with it just to get it exactly how you want it to look. All right, so since my wire is on the back side of the frame, I'm going to bring it to the front side and my wire around to lock that in. I'm just kind of holding that pushing it where I want it to be, and now we'll do 5 more loops. Right, there we go. So let me just cut off the extra. So yeah, I used, I think it was, yeah, about 9 inches here. You can see there's just a couple inches left. And since we're using bare copper wire, this is a very affordable wire compared to like a sterling silver or a certain type of gold. And so you don't have to stress too much about having those extra little pieces. So now I get to do my final little bits of nudging to make sure I'm happy where everything is sitting. And now I need my ear wire. Got a copper one to match. This one is antiqued, but over time, this since it is a bare copper wire, you know, right now it's very bright, but over time it's gonna tarnish, antique, patina, whatever kind of word you want to use there. It'll change color as I wear it over time, and so those actually blend a lot better. So there they are. There's the final one. It kind of, right now it's kind of reminding me of tie-dye for some reason. I guess just the bright colors all together. Oh, I just love that glimmering briolette there. I love how it shines as I move it. These are gonna be so much fun to wear. Well, I hope you will give this a try. Yes, I was using these stones, but whatever you have in your stash, look for things in a similar size, you know, kind of 3 to 5 millimeter range, I think is good for the size of the ring that I made. If you wanted to, you know, use 6 millimeter or larger beads in here, I think you're gonna wanna make the whole circle bigger. So, you know, my mandrel gave me 0.87 inches, 22.2 millimeters. So yeah, if you're gonna wanna put bigger beads in here, you're gonna wanna use a larger size mandrel for your frame. But there we go, that's my design. So here's we started out with these beads, and this is what they became. As you can see, I still have so many beads on these strands. I was only cutting from one strand of each of these. And so I'll be able to make plenty more jewelry with these stones. So this didn't mean I had to use it all up. It just meant I got to use a few pieces and just start the creative process. So I hope you will subscribe to my channel, come back for more tutorials, jewelry, design, and artistic ideas, and I'll see you next time.